All right, rookies. Here we are, Jeff and JT. We got Super Bowl weekend. This is we're going to talk about our picks. We're going to break down the games, and you're going to leave with some little bit better information about where you're going to bet this weekend as we go into the Super Bowl in Tempe, Arizona. Right now the line's 1.5 in favor of the Philadelphia Eagles. The money line, I'm looking at it, it's got it at 140. It's dipped down to 135. And then the over-under is 51. Jeff, I'll go let you go ahead and talk about the first half there that you want to talk about.
Yeah, so the things that I was looking at leading up to this game, I normally look at point differential through each team, and even though it's different conferences, you don't have as many common opponents. Philadelphia was definitely leading in that regard, so I was already leaning towards Philadelphia. But then when I monitored the injury report with one with Hardman out and a couple of receivers for Kansas City injured and not looking to be full speed, that made me even more worried about Kansas City. And then I'm starting to, hear things like Chris Jones is sick and out of practice today. And there's a few other Kansas City players that were ill. So the more I've looked this week, the more things seem to be stacking up against Kansas City.
Yeah, that flu, if that's what that is, or respiratory disease, that goes through the team, that can have a big effect. Even if it just affects Jones, that's going to be an impact, as he had 2 sacks against Burrow in that Cincinnati game and really was the clincher. I got to look at the offensive defensive lines and who's going to control the line of scrimmage. I think the Philadelphia Eagles on offense are going to control the line of scrimmage. And I think they're going to be able to run the football fairly effectively against the Chiefs. We're also playing in Arizona. We're playing inside. The weather's going to be perfect. I think this is going to be a pretty fast game from the perspective of keeping it inside the hash marks. I think you're going to see a lot of inside runs on the Chiefs. They did get Snead back off the injury report. Did you see that? So that will definitely help. He's definitely coming up from the secondary and is a run enforcer. So that could help. But I definitely think the Chiefs have not faced an offensive line as strong as the Eagles' offensive line. And I thought they showed it against the 49ers defense. And I don't think that the Kansas City Chiefs have a defense as good as the 49ers defense. And the 49ers defense is really good, and they pretty much handled them. So I think they're going to do it again this week. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. But Jeff, anything else, anywhere else you want to talk about with these two teams breaking them down?
Well, as you talk about the offensive line and Philly's run game, when Kansas City has struggled in their 3 losses, they've all struggled with time of possession. Basically, the key is to keep Mahomes on the bench. And so that is one of the keys to them trying to win the game, is to get Philadelphia off the field and get Mahomes back out there. And if they can't do that, the 3 losses, they were all beaten in time of possession. So Philly's run game is definitely going to be key.
Yeah, for sure. And then that leads to the Eagles had great second quarters throughout the season. And I think, one of their strategies is to have a strong first half and then just kind of ground and pound into the second half. So I'm kind of torn on the over because that kind of, like, your comment kind of leads to this thing could go under. And, a lot of the playoff games did go under. And I expect them to go over, but they went under because of this very fact. You get teams get a decent lead at halftime and they just kind of ground and pound and you just kind of sputter. The other team sputters in the second half. I don't think the Chiefs are going to sputter though. And I don't believe that Philadelphia is going to be able to kind of take their same game time approach. If they take that approach, and I would be watching it closely, I would potentially put money back on Kansas City as an as an in-game bet if we start seeing them start to do that in the third quarter, because I think that strategy will come back and bite them, because I think Mahomes is good enough of a quarterback to beat them in the fourth quarter if he can keep it within 10 points. So that's kind of that's kind of where I think. Anything about the special teams that jumps out at you?
Not terribly. I mean, I do like Kansas City's got a pretty steady kicking game. Just came in clutch at the end of the Cincinnati game. So I'd feel good about them if it was a really close game and then get that last shot. Mahomes can drive them downfield. Feel good about their kicker. They have struggled a little bit on the return game. Sky Moore fumbled several times, so they moved him in and out as a returner. Any type of a turnover like that on the punt or kickoff could be a huge game changer, because they cannot lose the turnover battle against Philly. I mean, that's the one thing with that run game, that you can't give them extra possessions. So,
Right.
So that would be my biggest fear, is that there's a turnover in the return game.
Yeah, I definitely think Kansas City has the better kicker of the two, and I think he's clutch in games, and I think kicking off that turf is going to should give him a pretty good advantage on length too. So I don't think they'll have to get as close as they do in Kansas City, and he's still pounding them out there 45, 50 yards pretty consistently, pretty high average if I remember right. I don't know off the top of my head, but I just know he's been clutch all season. So what do you think about the breakdown between Mahomes and Hurts? I mean, Mahomes has been there. He's been in the big moments. Hurts has too in college, but he hasn't really been there in the big moments in the pros. I mean, do you think he's going to be able to handle it? Do you think the team?
I don't think he would if they could stop the run game. If they can force him to beat them passing the ball, which he's done during the year, but that's been without much pressure. Put the pressure of a Super Bowl game and his limited ability to throw the ball, and that could really be a big benefit to Kansas City with him struggling. But I don't think they're going to worry about running him this game. Last game of the year, Super Bowl. Who cares about the injured shoulder? Let it all hang out. It's going to be hard enough to stop the run game. So I don't know if they can force him to beat him through the air.
Yeah, it'll be interesting if they bring up an extra guy to spy on them. That'll be one of the things that I think they may end up doing. But if they do that, that can open up the pass game, later on and play action for sure.
Yep.
So yeah, that'll be something early on to watch. The other thing, the one thing that I remember from the Cowboys Super Bowls, and the coach, was his name Johnson? Yeah, Jimmy Johnson. He always said it wasn't the big plays, but it was not making the errors. And if you remember back to the Bills games where the Cowboys just ran over them, it was really the errors by the Bills that gave the Cowboys those moments. And then once they broke it open, then they just kind of just ran over them. But the Bills were in those games in the first quarter for sure, and then key turnovers, and then the game was pretty much over, and the Cowboys took advantage. So I definitely think that if there are turnovers early on, that might also be a tell if you put money on the opposite side to if you're betting, let's say you're betting the Eagles, but Hurts throws a couple interceptions that first half. That may be a sign to maybe throw some money on the Chiefs to pull it out. So this is a really tough one. I mean, it's a basic 1.5 to me is a pick'em game. It's tough for me to bet against Mahomes in a big moment like that, because he's such a clutch, big moment player. You know what I mean? And that's not to say that Hurts is not. It's just we don't know if Hurts is. He hasn't showed it. He might show it out and really get it done this week. So,
yeah, I think the supporting cast is better for Philadelphia, and I think the injuries and illness are what's made me lean towards Philly. If they were both fully healthy, I think there's a big enough difference between Mahomes and Hurts that I would pick Kansas City. even with the talent difference.
Yeah, I'm still, this is a tough one for me. The only thing I'm kind of sure on, I guess I'm 60-40 is the over. I do think that this thing's going to go over. I think the other thing is I think the NFL is going to let them play. I mean, the NFL has gotten really beat up on the reffing calls the last couple of weeks. I mean, there's like players are coming out and, on all sides, even ones that weren't in the playoff games in question and calling out the reffing. So I don't think the NFL wants yet another game this playoff season to be decided by the team in black and white. So I think they're gonna not call as many calls, and I think that may go the way of the Philadelphia Eagles, because their offensive line is a lot more physical at the point of attack, and I think that means that they're going to be able to get away with a few more probably calls that probably might otherwise get called, but I don't think they're going to get called this week. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I would say that if they call fewer penalties, that would lean a little bit more towards the Chiefs, in my opinion, because this crew that's working this game has called the most penalty on Kansas City in the two games they've done of Kansas City previously with the lead umpire have been the two most penalized games against the Chiefs in the past 2 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So they have been in the top 4 in least penalized teams in the past year, except for when this umpire has worked the games, and then it's been the two most penalized games in their last 2 years.
All right. I didn't know that. That might be an interesting prop bet. I'm not sure. I have not checked with the referees how many penalties are going to be called. I might take a look at that. So speaking of prop bets, do you like any prop bets out there?
I would probably lean more towards going just on the over instead of a prop bet, but my prop bets would lean more towards Kansas City having to keep the gas on, either catch up or just, staying even with Philly. So I think Mahomes is going to continue to pass. I think you look at his completion numbers, passing yards, those might be the prop bets that I would go with.
Yeah, I kind of like, there's a prop bet out there that has Kelsey plus 475 over a half a yard. I kind of like that one. They run that jet sweep to the tight end, especially if they get in goal line. They may get them down there and put them in the quarterback position. They don't do it every play, every game, but they might. And for 475 plus 475, I think it might be worth a bet for sure. The other one I like is I like the time of possession. Right now, the time of possession is pretty solidly in Philly's favor at 165. But I mean, I think that's probably about right. I think even if the Chiefs can pull it out, I still don't think they're going to win the time of possession in the game, because I think the Philadelphia is going to be able to run on them and eat that clock up. So those would be my two prop bets. Well, all right, Jeff, let's get down to it. So what's your pick?
Well, my official pick with point spread, I'm still taking Philly minus 1.5. Since it's almost a pick 'em, the money line hasn't been that big of a difference. I've seen, it go down to 140 and stuff like that for the money line. It's gone up recently, but if you can find a fairly low money line bet, I would go ahead and do that instead of the 1.5. But definitely Philadelphia.
Okay. Are you leaning to the over or the under, or are you?
I'm leaning towards the over at this point. I still worry about the injuries to the receivers. I've been trying to check the injury list. I haven't checked it today. If there's anything that comes up on that late, another besides Hardeman, if anybody else is out or severely limited, it might change my mind, but I would lean towards the over at this point.
All right. Well, I'm going the over. 51 is my strong bet, 60-40. And about 55-50, I'm taking Philadelphia on the money line. If it drops down to a point, I mean, at that point, I'd probably take them on the point, but I think this thing could come down to the very last play. And I wouldn't want to lose it by half a point. And I'm not sure that the juice is worth the squeeze for that half point, you know. So I think we're in agreement on the winner of this thing, but I would say I think you got to watch this one and place your bets on Sunday, because you never know what the news is going to come out.
And it's definitely going to be a game to watch. It should not be a blowout or a low scoring, boring affair. It should be an entertaining game. So I look
I
forward
don't
to
think this is 55-10 40 Montana 49ers over Elway Broncos. I don't remember which Super Bowl, but that was one of the most boring Super Bowls I've ever watched.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, rookies. Well, you heard it here. Hope that analysis helps. Good luck. And this is our last podcast for the season. So we'll be seeing you next year because we only do NFL picks.
Yeah,
Jeff?
but be looking forward to seeing you back here with our improved content for next season.
You bet. Yeah, we're gonna do a lot of improvement to next year's lineup, and good luck. And I hope you've enjoyed our analysis. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.